This is the second in my series of videos on the Latin subjunctive. In this one, I will discuss purpose clauses. I will begin by saying that because English and Latin are related languages, and because Latin has for over 1,000 years had a continuous and often determining effect on English, it is very often possible to explain Latin grammar with English examples, or to start an explanation of Latin grammar with English examples. This is, I think, plainly the case where purpose clauses are concerned. Let us then begin with an English purpose clause. I went up to London to look at the Queen. This sentence contains two clauses. The first is a statement of what happened. The second, a statement of why it happened. I went up to London to look at the Queen. Let us see how this works in Latin, and to see this, let us make a slight change to the purpose clause in the English sentence. Instead of to look at the Queen, we have so that I might look at the Queen. This is a construction that has an obvious debt to Latin, and though it is not used very often in the spoken language, we should all be familiar with this kind of construction from the written language. I went up to London so that I might look at the Queen turns into the exact Latin equivalent Ivi Londinium ut reginam spectarem. In the Latin sentence, spectarem, if you paid attention to the first video in this series, is an imperfect subjunctive. It is the equivalent of the Latinized subjunctive in the English version, so that I might look at the Queen. We don't need a subjunctive in English for a purpose clause. I went up to London to look at the Queen. It is a clear and natural construction. It does all that you could want of a purpose clause. It says what happened, and it says why it happened. The more elaborate English version, I went up to London so that I might look at the Queen, is something that has come into English under Latin influence. I won't call it a superfluous construction. It may have any number of valid uses, but for the most part, in English, a much simpler infinitive construction does the job for us. I went up to London to look at the Queen. In Latin, though, a purpose clause of this kind requires both ut and a subjunctive. What tense of subjunctive depends on considerations which I will discuss much later in this series of videos. But in order to have a purpose clause in Latin, there are other ways of doing it, but in order to have a purpose clause of this kind in Latin, you need ut and a subjunctive. Or rather, you mostly need ut plus the subjunctive. Ut is the most common, but not at all the only signposting word for a purpose clause. Here are the main alternative signposters for a purpose clause. We'll start another table with two columns. We'll have what happened and why it happened. In the what happened column, we have an indicative verb. I went up to London, or Ivi Londinium. In the right-hand column, why it happened, you can have ut plus the subjunctive. You can have ne plus the subjunctive, qui plus the subjunctive. You can have quo plus the subjunctive. And here let me give some examples of purpose clauses to show the various use of these alternative signpost words. Magister multos libros legebat, ut sapiens esset. The teacher read many books so that he might be wise. There you have an absolutely standard purpose clause. You have a statement of what happened. The teacher read many books, and then you have the ut part, or the purpose clause, so that he might be wise. Ut sapiens esset. Or another standard ut clause. Cives fortiter pugnabant, ut urbem defenderent. The citizens fought bravely so that they might defend their city. I don't think I have anything more to add on this. Indeed, looking at it, this particular example may be redundant, may be superfluous. But here it is. I'm not changing the tables now. Pure se celaverunt, ne a magistro punirentur. The boys hid themselves so that they might not be punished by their teacher. There is the use of ne in a purpose clause. It expresses a negative. You don't use non, not non a magistro punirentur. You use ne. Here's another one. Rex milites misit, qui filium interficerent. The king sent soldiers so that they might kill his son. Qui can be a difficult signposting word here, because unless you spot the imperfect subjunctive, you may not notice that it is a purpose clause. The use of qui in a purpose clause is common, or at least permitted, when people are being sent to achieve a specific purpose. We then have this last example. Puri currebant, quo celerius a magistro effugerent. The boys ran so that they might escape faster from their teacher. You might translate this as, the boys ran, by which fact they might escape faster from their teacher. Quo is used to introduce purpose clauses where there is a comparative adverb. These examples being given, ut is the most common signposting word for a purpose clause. Look out for that. Look out for ut. Don't forget the others, but do look out for ut. That is the most common signposter, though of course it does not only introduce purpose clauses. I think this is enough about purpose clauses. I have explained what they exist to achieve and how they try to achieve it. And so once again, I'll thank you for having watched this video and hope that you'll be able to watch the others in this series. Many thanks.